peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and author of 4 baking books, including Snackable Bakes. In each episode, I hang out with some of the sweetest bakers around and take a deep dive into their signature bakes. My guest today is Mia Castro. Mia is a chef, cookbook author, and TV personality based in New York City. You might recognize her from her appearances on Chopped, Hell's Kitchen, and Beat Bobby Flay, where she did, in fact, beat Bobby Flay. More on that dish in a minute. Now she's releasing her first cookbook, Cocina Puerto Rico, Recipes from My Abuela's Kitchen to Yours, next week, and she joins me to talk all about it. Mia tells me about the process of creating the book during the pandemic, her abuela's influence on the recipes and their very long FaceTime calls, and how the book took her back to her childhood growing up in Puerto Rico. We discuss the bakeries she went to as a little kid, trailing her abuela around the kitchen all through her childhood, her decision to go to culinary school, her mom suggested it, and more. Then she walks me through her Milkiest Tres Leches cake recipe, her take on the beloved Latin American dessert. We talk about the sponge cake and her 2 toppings of choice, a silky meringue or a coconut cloud whipped cream, and how this can easily be a portable sheet cake pan situation or a standalone layer cake. I loved chatting with Mia, so stay tuned for our conversation. You can find today's recipe at cherrybombe.substack.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Carrie Diamond, host of Radio Cherry Bombe. Some quick housekeeping. On Galentine's Day and Valentine's Day, we are doing a special Bomb Squad Bazaar at Shopify in Soho. On Galentine's Day, February 13th, our 3 cover stars are doing a panel with me, and good friends Natasha Pickowitz and Annie Shee will be in conversation. Then on Valentine's Day, we've got a panel with some of the guys we love, including Peter Sam and Wolde Reyes, and I'll be interviewing Padma Lakshmi of the new show America's Culinary Cup, which debuts in March. So you can spend Valentine's Day with me and Padma. Everybody will be doing book signings, and we've got lots of great female-founded food and lifestyle brands there that you can check out, including Bixby Chocolate, Cartolina, Amber Waves Farm, and Marshall's Hot Sauce. For tickets and more details, visit cherrybombe.com or get the link in our show notes.
Let's chat with today's guest. Mia, so excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie and to chat Milkiest Tres Leches with you and so much more.
Thank you for having me, Jessie. I'm so excited.
Yay! I love to start interviews with a guest sort of like early baking memories and or an early baked good eating memory. And I know you have many from the incredible bakeries in Puerto Rico. So will you tell us a little bit about something you remember making and also, if you have both, something that you remember eating?
Mm-hmm. So actually what I remember making from the beginning was the Pillsbury cinnamon rolls, the ones that come in the tub and pop. And then just box brownies and box cake. That's what I started with. And still something I guiltily love.
I have to say my favorite is a cake from a box.
Yes.
It really is. Every homemade cake I make, I am trying to emulate that experience of eating one from a box. Mm-hmm. So I get you.
Yeah, the flavor is just nostalgic. You can't really recreate it. But as far as pastries from Puerto Rico, actually one of my favorite are the quesitos, which I used to get as a merienda in school. And merienda is like a snack. And we had this like 15-minute break between classes. So I'd run down to the cafeteria and get these. And it was sort of my incentive to stay awake during classes.
Knowing you could treat yourself.
Yes.
And tell us about the pastry. Like, what's the dough like and what's the filling like?
It's very simple. It's puff pastry. Mm-hmm. Traditionally, they're filled with like a sweet cream cheese. And then they're topped with a sort of glaze. We call it an almíbar. It's like a simple syrup type deal. So it's a little sticky, flaky, salty on the inside. So you get all the textures and flavors. Oh and in my new cookbook, I have them, but I add a little guava to them. And it's a flavor that I used to take for granted because it was in everything in Puerto Rico.
Guava?
Yes, guava.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah. So now living in the U.S., I want all the guava things.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I love that. So you did as a little kid, and probably even when you were older, frequent panaderías or bakeries as a little kid. Tell us, besides the quesitos, I think you would order like croquetas or empanadillas.
Yes.
Can you tell us about some of the different things that you would get when you would go to the bakery?
So Puerto Rico, I feel like we don't really have a true breakfast culture. Our breakfast more consists of snacks. Our panaderías, you get more snacky things. So like you may get a coffee with a croqueta or a coffee with a sandwich or a pastry. So that's where my love for these, more snacky things for breakfast comes from.
I love that. And you write about this in the book, which I love, just how coffee is actually, you have a recipe for. I mean, it's like a course of its own. And coffee is the main player. And then you're sort of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. In Puerto Rico, coffee is more of like an all-day thing. And our culture very much revolves around coffee. So yes, breakfast, we have coffee first and then... So that's why I have with cafecito chapter in the book. And then also we have a café del mediodía, which is the midday coffee.
Yeah.
And we might have that with like a snacky cake, like Abuela's coconut carrot cake, which is more mild in flavor. It's not very sweet. And then also for dinner, we might have like a little cortadito, which is like an espresso cut with a little bit of milk.
Love. So you were partly raised by your grandparents. Abuela Sarah was sort of the cook. Your abuelo was like the farmer, and he harvested all of their delicious food that was growing around the house, etc. I loved learning this, that Abuela learned to cook from her mother, from your great-grandmother, by eye. And I know there's like a Spanish expression for by eye that you should tell us, and that she never uses recipes.
No.
So tell us about by eye. I love that.
Yeah, so by eye is like a ojo. It's instinctually. So most of these recipes, I had to pry them from her because, not because she didn't want to share them, but because she didn't know how to explain. She throws a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you taste it. And so I would ask her, like, okay, so how much salt or how much sofrito? She's like, I don't know, just like un ching, like a little bit.
Yeah.
And okay, so how do I know if it's ready? Well, you taste. I'm like, well, what is it supposed to taste like?
Yeah.
So it's really funny to get recipes out of her.
And was it really the cookbook when you started to do so? Like prior to that, had you been trying to pry recipes from her, or prior to that, not so much?
Not so much. Recipes here and there. I got the arroz con pollo recipe from her because I made that on Bobby Flay.
Yes. And won.
Yes. So the night before the competition, I called her. I was like, Abuela, how do you make arroz con pollo?
Yeah.
And she says, the same way you make arroz con gandules with pigeon peas, but with pollo. I'm like,
that doesn't help.
That does not help me.
I love that.
So I got that one. And then the documentation of her recipes was more during COVID because I was left here by myself, and I would call her every day on FaceTime during lunchtime. And she'd be having all of these amazing dishes that she always makes for me, but I've never learned how to make because I have hers, so I kind of take it for granted. So I started asking her, okay, like, teach me how to make them. And she was showing me via FaceTime. And I started sharing them online. And the response was very much like, oh my God, like, my abuela used to make that, or, you should really share that recipe. So that's where, recording them started.
Totally. But when you were little, you were either like kneeling on an old wooden stool, kind of watching her at the stove, or you were like trailing her around the kitchen. Do you remember any early memories of the cooking that she was doing that are forever kind of emblazoned in your brain? Or in your tastes?
Very much so. She has her staple dishes. So I think one of them is serenata de bacalao, which is a salty or saltfish salad. And I call it the cousin of the French niçoise because it's the salty preserved cod with onions, tomatoes, lots of olive oil. And then we serve it with viandas, which are like our starchy root vegetables or like starchy fruits as well, instead of the French potatoes.
Yeah.
I remember her making that midday, and then we would watch together el show La Cocina de Giovanna, which She's like the Julia Child of Puerto Rico, and she was on Telemundo for like 23 years. And so we would watch her. And back then, we don't have screenshots. We don't have internet. So like she'd have me scribble down the recipes and then we'd recreate it like immediately in real time.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I read it. I always like to ask guests about like food TV that influenced them or cookbooks that influenced them. And I read about Giovanna. I love that. And was she the person who wrote the foreword for your book?
It was
That's
her.
Giovanna.
It was her. Yeah, so
nice.
like fast forward, I go to this food festival in Puerto Rico and they have me do a radio show. And who walks in? Joanna. And it was like a full circle moment. So now she's like colleague, mentor, friend. She's amazing.
It's incredible. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. Cherry Bomb's new issue is almost here. It's called Mom's the Bomb and will be out on Galentine's Day, a.k.a. February 13th, a.k.a. our favorite holiday. We're so excited to have 3 amazing covers featuring these dynamic mother-daughter duos. Chloe Crane LaRue with her mom Trudy, who are the co-authors of the cookbook, The Artful Way of Plant-Based Cooking. Sama Dada and her mom Shameen. Sama is the founder of Dada Eats and a cookbook author. And food stylist Romilly Newman and her mom Antonia, a casting director. Chloe, Sama, and Romilly all share a deep bond with their mom, who have influenced their culinary styles and careers. Don't miss their cover stories with original photography by Jennifer Livingston. This issue is also packed with delicious recipes, beautiful photos, and heartfelt essays. Head over to cherrybomb.com to subscribe now to guarantee your copy. Now back to our guest. We've talked about stuff that like Abuela was cooking. Was she also baking or not really?
Abuela bakes. She has her signature bakes like the coconut carrot cake. I add mascarpone cream cheese icing, but that's a me thing.
Yes.
My dad doesn't like it. Yeah. Abuelo doesn't either.
Yeah.
I remember making brazo gitano, which is like a roulade cake with her. I asked her for the recipe recently and she was like, girl, I don't know where that recipe is. Like she doesn't really bake much anymore.
Yeah.
But she's more savory.
Yeah. Makes sense. Through this whole experience of growing up and sort of being raised by her and your grandfather was there too, that's sort of where you kind of learned or found an affinity for like cooking with all of the produce that was growing in the garden and the farm. And were you at all interested in baking or you were more focused on cooking as well with your grandmother, etc.?
Yes. Cooking for me started with Abuela and sort of where I developed the passion for it. And I was kind of on the organic, slow food movement before it was a trend.
Right, of course.
Actually, they're still around and they live in the same house. And, it's a big house. It has a little estate type deal. So there's like all kinds of trees growing, like plantains, bananas, coconuts, all kinds of like tropical fruits and vegetables that grow there. So I grew up around, Abuela asking Abuelo to chop down some plantains or some bananas and just bringing them up. And it was just second nature to me. And then where I started actually cooking on my own was when I was a little older and I was staying home in my mom and dad's house after school. I was experimenting with whatever was in the fridge and foraging for ingredients in the fridge and watching the Food Network. And so like my love for ingredients, I think, is born from Abuela. And then my love for cooking, it's kind of born out of boredom and necessity when my parents were working.
Oh, I love that. Tell us which Food Network shows were you interested in?
Oh, my God. Rachel Ray, Giada De Laurentiis, Barefoot Contessa. Yeah. But I loved Rachel Ray's 30-minute meals and how efficient she was. So that's kind of how I learned how to conduct myself in the kitchen. Yeah. And I loved how, like, clean and precise Giada was and Giada's flavors. And I loved Ina's, creativity and sort of elegance. So like it was many female chefs who influenced me.
So sort of right before your high school graduation, you sort of had the realization that maybe you wanted to pursue being a chef. And I loved learning that your mom actually either put the idea in your head or at least encouraged you. Tell us about that.
So I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And being a chef was never, something that I had really in-depth thought of. My mom is very practical. She's very much a career-driven woman.
What was her job?
She's a lawyer. She's an attorney. I told her, I was like, I think I'm going to stay in Puerto Rico and just do general studies and figure it out. She was like, no, you're not. You're going to pick a major. You're going to pick a path. And she was like, you're always in the kitchen. You live and breathe Food Network. Why don't you go to culinary school?
So great.
Why don't you leave Puerto Rico? Why don't you, stage elsewhere or, intern somewhere? So she kind of gave me a little push. I was like, all right, sure, let's do it. And so we researched culinary schools. She took me to go see them, and she gave me the sort of push I didn't know I needed.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's so funny to think of your mom giving you the suggestion and you being open to it. Because I feel like as a mom, if I suggest something to my kids, they do the exact opposite. So it's great that you were sort of open to what she had to say, and also that she was so sensitive. She knew exactly what you should do.
Yeah, she knew better than I did what I should do. And yeah, she's definitely been a driving force. Abuela has always been sort of the soul and the passion. And then my mom has always been the objective, business, practical. So I'm glad to have those opposing forces and driving influences.
And did she specifically want you to leave Puerto Rico? Did she want you kind of to spread your wings?
She did.
She did. Mm-hmm. And did she want you to come home because you never came home?
Yes. The idea was you go to college and then you come back.
Right.
And I never did.
Yeah.
I loved learning over here, and I loved challenging myself, and I wanted to learn as much as I could before I came back home. And 20 years later, I'm here in New York still.
Your mom kind of took you around the United States looking at cooking schools. I assume you were looking, rather than coming to New York City and getting an apartment, were you looking at schools where they would sort of house you and it would be more all-inclusive?
Yes.
How did you pick the CIA? It just spoke to you, or you knew it was the best?
We knew it was the best.
Yeah.
And, we did a research. I applied for different ones. I got accepted into New England Culinary Institute and Johnson & Wales and CIA.
Yeah.
And we went and we saw all three of them. And then we ended up going with the CIA.
Yeah.
I mean, the campus and the curriculum was just, it was what we wanted.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then after school, you ended up working for Jose Andres and Thomas Keller and Wolfgang Puck, had this sort of incredible career with these major chefs. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about beating Bobby Flay, and you were only 23 when you were a finalist on Chopped. Mm-hmm. And then at 28, you were a standout on Hell's Kitchen. It's incredible. How did that even happen?
So it also wasn't really intentional. When I did Chopped, which was my first TV appearance, I remember I was home watching the show and yelling at the TV, upset because I would have done things differently. And it was kind of an impulse thing. I just went online and I was like, I'm going to apply for this show. I think I can do it. And I never thought that they would call me. And they did. I was living in Vegas at the time, and it was pure coincidence. They were going to be doing castings in Vegas, within a month.
Who were you working for at the time?
I was working for Jose Andres at A by Jose Andres.
Yeah.
Yes. So I did the casting. They came into the restaurant, interviewed me there. We even shot there at A. And then it kind of trickled from there. Years later, I had a producer call me for Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
I was like, sure, I have nothing to lose. I'll do a casting.
Tell us about the Arroz con Pollo and why that won Bobby Flay. First of all, I went to school way uptown at Barnard, and there was a place called La Rositas. Mm-hmm. And all through college, all I ate was Arroz con Pollo. That was my favorite thing.
Oh, you had it. Okay.
Oh, my gosh. 1,000,000 times. I love it so much.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I think what's known as the national dish in Puerto Rico is mofongo, which is fried plantains that are smashed in a mortar and pestle. Sometimes they're served with broth. Sometimes they're filled with meats, Creole sauce. And sometimes I crave it, but I don't always love it because it can be if it's not done right, it can be tacky and dry and heavy. And so I didn't want Puerto Rican food to only be known for mofongo and tostones. So when they asked me what my signature dish was, I was like, well, I don't want to make mofongo. Like, I feel like that's the one thing that everyone thinks of. So I resorted to something that's just delicious and comforting, and that brings a lot of flavor because we use sofrito, we use adobo, sazon. So I just wanted to bring all that flavor into, the Food Network.
Yeah, so great. I love that. The Hell's Kitchen appearance or experience when you were 28, that actually led to Ramsay in 10, which is Gordon Ramsay's. He would challenge you to make 10-minute meals. I imagine that was, and I watched some of them. They're so great. I love them. I imagine that was huge for your career, no? And for your brand and for social, all of that.
Yes. Like I said, it was all trickle down effect.
Cool.
And it did help boost my socials. But I mostly enjoyed cooking in his kitchen.
Incredible. So the impetus for the book was basically 2020 and being grounded in New York and craving home. Tell us about those daily FaceTime calls that lasted for hours with Abuela.
So usually for lunch, I didn't want to eat by myself, so I'd FaceTime her. And so it was my Abuela, Abuelo, and my dad, and I'd see them eating these delicious dishes that Abuela always makes, like the saltfish salad, the serenata, or even arroz con pollo, or her stews, which are delicious, and her octopus salad. And I'd be like, oh my God, like I really want that right now. And I don't often have comida criolla, which is like, Creole, typical Puerto Rican food here. I often wait to just go home and have it at her house. But I couldn't at the time. So I was like, okay, I have nothing to do. I am stuck here. Abuela, I'm going to order all the ingredients and you're going to teach me how to make it.
Yeah.
So like every day we would just make a different dish together, and we'd spend a couple hours on the phone on FaceTime, and then we'd sit down and have lunch together. And I started scribbling down the recipes, and I would just like post pictures or post quick little clips, and my DMs would get inundated with requests for these recipes. I was like, maybe I should start posting the recipes. And the response was amazing. Like I even got I didn't even know about this, but like one of the local papers in Puerto Rico wrote about these recipes that I was sharing.
Were you sharing them like sort of in Instagram captions, or did you I know you have a website now, were you putting them on a website? How were you sharing them?
First I was sharing pictures and clips on stories, but back then it was IGTV. I learned how to edit, and I started posting little videos. And I actually made a series. It was called Cooking in Times of Corona, which was a little riff on Love in the Time of Cholera.
I love that. Yeah, I forgot about IGTV. Oh my gosh, that was pre-Reels.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were longer videos.
Yeah.
They were like 6 to 10 minutes.
So you would say, and now I'm putting in a tablespoon of blah, 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 like so that people could then write down what you were saying, so there didn't have to be a written recipe. Got you.
Or I was adding them in the captions.
Yeah. So the book is it's so beautiful. Johnny Miller shot it, right?
Yes,
the photos are incredible and they're shot at Abuela's house in San Juan, which is incredible. You kind of describe it as a collection of recipes that represent your family's home. I guess with some Mia tweaks.
Some of them, yes. Yeah. Like some of them are Abuela, some of them are other family members or parts of the island that, bring me home. And then some of them are like my very chefy riffs.
No, like salads and fritters. I'm not really a cook, but I really want to go to Abuela's house.
Well, let me know.
I will. I know. I literally, when I was reading your book, was like, I don't think I've been to Puerto Rico since I was like a little kid with my parents. Wow. I was like, what am I doing?
It's only a 3.5-hour flight.
Yeah, and the
from
food
here.
looks incredible. And I really do want to go to Abuela's house because it also looks extremely nice. And she's so pretty. I love all the photos of your family.
She's the cutest.
She's so cute. Oh my gosh. Well, one thing you do, which I love, which we sort of alluded to in the beginning, was these recreation of favorites from the island's traditional panaderías or bakeries. So there are a couple of bakery favorites I was hoping you'd tell us about. Abuela's coconut rice pudding that she would give at Christmas time. Tell me about that. Because I love the idea of rice pudding being what you're gifting, not like a cake that's going to last, but something that you have to eat right away.
Mm-hmm. So the coconut rice pudding, I wouldn't say that one's a panadería. It's a Christmas classic.
Okay.
So it's one of the desserts that we serve around Christmas time.
Yeah.
We have two. We have the arroz con dulce, which is the coconut rice pudding. And then we also have tembleque, which is a coconut pudding. And both of them can be gifted. So Abuela and I have the funniest video. She has this big caldero, which is a cauldron pot that's bigger than her. And she makes all this rice pudding and then portions it out. And we put it in the fridge. We let it cool and it's sliceable. So like,
oh, I love that.
Yeah. So we'll go to different Christmas parties and she'll just come in with her rice pudding.
Love that. Oh my gosh, it sounds so good to me. You might have already mentioned this one, but I'm not sure. I think it's just called moist cake. Yes. Yeah, and it has like a sugary syrup. Tell us about moist cake.
Yes, so in Puerto Rico, it's also known as ponqué, and it's like the traditional either birthday or wedding cake, and other people call it bizcocho mojadito, which translates to moist cake. And so I just decided to call it that.
I love that. Yeah. I think it's such a, I mean, you're like taking back the word moist that sometimes people get freaked out by. Right.
People
like
hate
it's moist cake, peeps.
It is. Like, it is what it is.
I love that.
But yeah, it's kind of like a sponge cake, and we make a syrup with a little bit of almond extract, and I feel like that's what gives it its signature flavor. And you pour, and I write this in the book, like you pour as much or as little as you want. Some people like it on the drier side. Some people like it on the moist side, for lack of a better word. The more syrup you pour into it, the sweeter.
Yeah.
So Abuela likes it very sweet.
Yeah.
Like she loves sweets.
And finally, you've alluded to this, and perhaps this is just an Abuela recipe and not like a bakery recipe, but the coconutty carrot cake?
Yes. So this one is also an Abuela recipe. She would just always make it growing up. Like it would be at our birthday parties. Like sometimes she would make it just because. And it's one of those kind of like Dory's anytime cakes.
Yeah.
Like you just set it in the middle of the table and you just keep slicing into it all day. Because it's not, in Puerto Rico we have a term and it's called empalagoso, which means that it's so sweet you can't eat a lot of it. So when we say que empalaga, it makes you want to stop. Yeah. And this is not the case with this cake. Yeah,
you can keep going. You can keep going. And is it almost like a carrot cake with just as much coconut as carrots? Is that why coconut gets to be part of the title? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, because often, like, I think my carrot cake, it definitely has coconut in it, but not like an incredible amount. But this one sounds so good to me because it's such like the marriage of two incredible cakes.
Yes, and I think the reason why Abuela made it a lot is because we have coconut trees in the backyards. Like, we have a lot of coconut. Like, she makes the limbers, which are the coconut cupsicles. They're like popsicles made in a cup.
Yeah.
And then the tembleque, which she makes the coconut milk for. The arroz con dulce, the rice pudding. And then this cake, it's made with shredded coconut, which is a byproduct of all of these other desserts that she often makes.
So she has to make it because she doesn't want to waste. Love. All right, now we're going to talk about Milkiest Tres Leches. Love the title. So remind us what Tres Leches is, just for people who may have forgotten.
So Tres Leches is a traditional Latin American dessert. I'm not going to say it's solely Puerto Rican. And it's cake that is soaked in tres leches, 3 milks. And what makes mine different is the ratio of milk to cake and the drier sponge cake, which really soaks in those milks rather than having like a cake sitting in a pool of milk.
I think of sponge cake as traditional for tres leche, but do you think is that right? That it's traditional, or often people are making I actually make a tres leche, but I use a regular cake because I'm trying to make it easy because I like things that are easy. And it's very good, but it doesn't have the soaking capability of like a sponge cake.
I think it is traditional to use sponge cake. Actually, when I first started making tres leche, I couldn't nail down the sponge, recipe. So I would use the box cakes and soak them in milk, and it worked, but it ended up very soppy and almost a little too sweet.
Yeah.
I actually worked with a baker in Miami. She was a colleague, and she made the best tres leche that I would order from her. Her name's Mari, and her bakery is called Casa Joya. And I would ask her, like, oh my God, what's the secret? She's like, well, I can't tell you the secret because that's my business, but I can tell you, you need to use sponge cake.
Yeah.
What I liked about hers and why I taught myself to make sponge cake is precisely that. The cake, it fights you a little bit. It doesn't disintegrate when you cut into it. So it makes it richer and it gives you chew rather than mushiness in your mouth.
Yep. I totally get that. I also, what I love about yours is you give us two options. One for keeping it in sort of the traditional sheet pan where you're just going to be scooping it out. And for that, we're going to make this delicious coconut whip that we're going to talk about. But you also give us an option for making it in cake pans, flipping the pans out, and covering it in meringue, which is also just... Both of those sound so delicious to me. I also read that this tres leche is one of your dad's favorites.
Yes, it is. So
love.
I had an aunt who made it too, and whenever we had birthdays or events, my dad would always request this cake from her.
There's a lot to be said for the sheet cake version of this because, first of all, you bake, assemble, and serve from the same pan. It makes it portable, convenient, bring to parties and get-togethers. Love all of that. But then if you need something like fancier, because I've actually never seen tres leche like as a layer cake.
Unmolded,
and so I love that. And
it's because it soaks all the milk.
I was going to say.
It doesn't bleed the milk out.
Yeah, because it's that really absorbent sponge cake, you can get away with that. Because I have definitely made and had that tres leche experience where it's almost kind of dissolving because it's so soaked.
And one of the reasons it works is because I almost overbake it. So like usually with cake, you don't want it to be dry, where with tres leche, you almost want it to be on the drier side so it can absorb all of that milk.
Yeah. So we're going to heat the oven to 350 degrees. And if we're going to unmold the cake, then we are going to lightly coat the bottom of 2 8 or 9-inch cake pans, round cake pans. We'll do nonstick spray, line the bottom with parchment. But if we are not unmolding, like we're making it in a big sheet pan, we don't have to do any spraying. We don't have to do any papering.
No, I want the cake to rise and stick to the sides because sponge cake tends to contract a little bit once it's out of the oven. And so I don't want it to do that. I want it to rise evenly and stick to the side. If you are unmolding, we are greasing.
Right, but if you're not unmolding, if you're eating out of the pan, we're not going to grease or do any papering.
Nope.
Got it. In a medium bowl, we're going to whisk together some all-purpose flour, baking powder, and salt until combined. The all-purpose flour, what do you have a favorite brand?
I use King Arthur.
King Arthur? And then we're going to add the baking powder. And then is the salt kosher? Is it fine sea salt?
I use Himalayan pink.
Oh, nice.
Because it's a little finer.
Yep.
And it's not as salty as table salt.
Yep. In all of your recipes?
Yes.
And so we'll whisk that together until combined. And then in the bowl of a stand mixer fitted with the whisk attachment or in a large bowl using a handheld mixer, we'll combine some egg yolks. Do the egg yolks need to be room temperature?
Yeah.
We're going to combine some room temp egg yolks, some granulated sugar, some vanilla. Do you have a favorite brand of vanilla?
Nielsen Massey.
Yeah, I love that too. And vanilla, and we'll whip on medium-high speed until the yolks are pale yellow in color, tripled in size, glossy, 2 to 5 minutes. We'll stop and scrape the bowl periodically with a rubber spatula, and then we'll reduce the speed to low, and we'll whisk in some full-fat coconut milk until it's just incorporated. I loved that sort of almost like one of the milks for the tres leche is in the cake.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I did it. I didn't want to have to go and get another milk for this or open another can.
Yep.
Yep,
love. Whisk in this full-fat coconut milk. So then we're going to gently transfer this mixture to a large bowl. And then using a sifter or a fine mesh sieve, we're going to sift the flour mixture evenly over the yolk mixture and then fold gently again with our rubber spatula, I presume, until incorporated. And I assume we're sifting so the texture will be super light.
I sift so it spreads evenly over the batter and doesn't weigh down what we already whipped.
Yep.
I normally don't sift. I'm a whisker.
Yep.
But because we're creating a sponge cake and we're creating all this air, I don't want to weigh it down by dumping all this flour in one part of the batter.
Yep. So then we're going to clean our stand or hand mixer bowl, and now we're going to whip our egg whites, which I assume we want to be room temp also, on medium-high speed until they start to get foamy and turn white, about a minute. We'll add some granulated sugar, a tablespoon at a time, and then we'll whip until the egg whites hold medium stiff peaks And for you, that means like lifting the whisk or the beater. Do we want our tip like standing straight up or a teeny bit of a curl?
It can have a little curl, soft peaks.
And it'll look glossy like 4 to 7 minutes. Now, sometimes, and I know you do this in the meringue, sometimes I see recipes or I have recipes where we add a little bit of cream of tartar to the whites. Was there a reason you didn't add it with these whites? Did you feel like you didn't need it? I think cream of tartar can sort of help with like stability.
Yeah, I do it for the meringue, not for the cake because we're baking it anyway. It has baking powder, so I don't think it needs it in this case.
And then with a rubber spatula, we'll gently fold this egg white mixture into the yolk and flour mixture in 3 additions, just until it's incorporated. But if we see a few streaks, that's okay. Do not overmix. Sometimes I see recipes where, like, if you're doing it, let's say in 3 installments, like the first installment, you can be like a little more aggressive in how you incorporate, and then the next 2 lighter. Do you do that as well?
I do. And actually, the first addition, I usually use a whisk just to lighten the batter. And then the next 2, I use the spatula
and are very gentle. And then with our spatula, we'll scrape the batter into the prepared pan or pans if we're making a layer cake. And we'll hold the bowl. I loved this tip. We'll hold the bowl really close to the pan to avoid deflating the egg whites. And is that the idea that if the bowl is up at a great height and it has to plop down? I thought that was such a good tip.
Yeah, we spent all this time creating all this air. If you hold it up, you know, you're going to pop those bubbles on contact.
Yeah, I thought that was a great tip. Then we're going to bake the cake on the center rack of our oven for about 24 to 29 minutes. We want it to be light and golden, fluffy, and a toothpick inserted into the center comes out clean. I had written, do you ever like to have moist crumbs on your toothpick? Because I always worry about, I hate dry cake. But now I understand you actually want this cake to be just a teeny bit this side of done.
And I've actually made it where I get moist crumbs and I'm thinking, oh, perfect. But not if you're going to soak it in milk, because what happens is when you poke it, it may not absorb all the milk. So that piece ends up being the dry bit of the cake because it didn't absorb the milks properly.
Yeah, makes sense. So then we're going to remove the cake from the oven or the cakes, let cool for 30 minutes to 2 hours. Sometimes I've seen tres leche cakes where you actually soak when they're warm. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I'm particular about poking it too. Like I want to poke it with a fork and I want it to be very close together. And so I feel like when it's warm and you poke it, you end up tearing the cake.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be completely cool, but at least so the bottom is
of the pan.
Cool to the touch.
I thought that was a great tip. I thought that was a great tip. So in a blender, and do you have like a favorite brand of blender that we should all be rushing to go buy?
Vitamix.
Yeah, I love my Vitamix.
Yeah. I'm not usually precious about appliances, but Vitamix is
so good. In a blender, we're going to combine evaporated milk, condensed milk, coconut milk, and vanilla. We're going to blend on medium speed until the ingredients are just combined and the condensed milk is dissolved. Do you write that because it can be so thick and you just want to thin out that?
Yeah, and sometimes it creates some froth, which I try to avoid because that froth stays, it floats on top of the cake when you pour it.
Yeah.
So just combined, no froth.
Yeah, and are there special brands of evaporated milk and condensed milk that you like? Are they? Yeah, no. Me either. I'm just like, where is it? I'll take it.
Yeah, the coconut milk, I just want it to be the ingredients 100% coconut.
Yes, and not sweetened.
Not sweetened.
Yeah. And we're going to blend for about 30 seconds to 1 minute. We don't want to overblend because we don't want it to be frothy. Now I understand why. When the bottom of the cake pan is cooled to the touch. And I just wondered, can you speed up the cooling process by sticking it in the fridge or the freezer? Is that okay with you? I'm always looking for a shortcut.
Yeah.
And then we're going to poke the cake all over with a fork or skewer. But it sounds like it's your favorite, a fork?
A fork.
Yep. And we're going to leave no more. So this is so specific. I love it.
The fork is, I prefer the fork because I have to poke it less. If I use a skewer, then I have to.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
You want to leave no more than a ½ inch between each poke.
Yeah. I want to poke everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't want it to be random, scattered pokes. Like, I want it to be very uniform so it absorbs all the milk uniformly.
Yep. So we'll leave a ½ inch between each poke. Then we'll pour about 1/3 of the blended milk mixture over the cake, making sure to get into the corner edges. Otherwise, they'll be dry. Then we'll allow the cake to drink up the milk, rotating the pan, tapping it gently if necessary to distribute the milk mixture evenly, and then we'll repeat until we've used up all the milk. And this is a really important, I think, tres leche note. That can take like 5 to 10 minutes. Like you can't just pour it over and be done. You really have to do it in stages.
Yeah, and I want to see where the cake is absorbing the milk. Like maybe one side is absorbing faster than the other. So I'm tilting it to move the milk down. So like you want to babysit it at this point.
Yeah. Then we're going to cover the cake with foil or plastic wrap and refrigerate for at least 6 hours, but preferably overnight. If we're unmolding the cake, although you can put this on the cake that stays in the pan too, we're going to make silkiest meringue. Merengue sedoso. So we're going to place room temp egg whites in the bowl of a stand mixer fitted with a whisk attachment or in a large bowl if using a hand mixer. We're going to mise en place, so we're going to have ready next to us a tablespoon of granulated sugar, some cream of tartar, or lemon juice. So they each do the same job of helping keep the...
Stabilize.
Interesting. Salt, and then some vanilla. You say paste or extract, both Nielsen Massey, use whichever you have.
Or both.
Yeah. Do you love the paste for the little specks?
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty. And then all of that will be next to our mixer. Then we're going to place additional granulated sugar in a small pot. Do you have favorite cookware that you're using on your stovetop?
I use Hexclad right now.
Yeah. So we're going to place the additional granulated sugar in a small pot. We'll pour some water around the sugar without splashing. We'll bring that to a boil over medium-high heat, reduce to medium, and we'll cook until the sugar syrup reaches soft ball around 230 degrees. And I love this great tip. Can you tell us the tip if you don't have a thermometer for figuring out softball?
So you put a cup with water and ice and you just drop a little bit of this sugar mixture and you want it to form a soft, malleable ball.
Yeah.
So if it hardens, you've gone too far.
Yeah. I've also seen people sort of like stick their fingers in the cold water and then like roll the ball in their hands to see what happens. And that'll be about 10 to 15 minutes. Then we'll remove the sugar syrup from the heat. Simultaneously, we're beating our egg whites on medium speed, adding that tablespoon of sugar, the cream of tartar, the lemon juice, the salt, and we'll whip until the egg whites get foamy, start looking white and meringue, and this is about 5 minutes. Do we also add the vanilla now?
Yes, at the end.
Okay. After the 5 minutes, we add the vanilla, or do we add the vanilla along with the sugar, the cream of tartar, etc.?
I want to add the vanilla at the end. I don't want to cook it.
Exactly.
That kind of mutes the flavor.
Then we'll reduce the speed to medium-low. Carefully, in a slow, steady stream, we'll pour in our sugar syrup. If it starts to splash, we need to reduce our speed. Been there, done that. It's like you covered your bowl. And you say, which great tip, avoid pouring too quickly or we're going to scramble our egg whites and then we'll continue to pour for about 1 to 2 minutes. Again, I love you're very good about taking your time with this recipe. Like all the steps, really you can't rush it or it's not going to go well for you.
I've tried and
me too.
I've messed it up so many times.
Yeah. So then we'll raise the speed to high on the mixer and we'll beat until the sides of the bowl are completely cool to the touch, probably the bottom as well.
Yes.
About 10 minutes and the meringue will be creamy and shiny and feel tacky and we'll use immediately. So to unmold our cake and top it with our silkiest meringue, we'll find a plate with a lip. Is that in case there's a little bit of delicious milkiness?
Yes.
We'll find a large plate with a lip, about 2 to 3 inches wider than our cake. We'll run a butter knife offset spatula around the edge of the cake to separate it from the pan, and then place the plate upside down, invert it, release the cake onto the plate with the lip. And I love this. If the cake doesn't plop, I love the technical term. If the cake doesn't plop down right away, we can sort of lift one side of the pan and use a butter knife to kind of release the cake onto the plate.
And that's why I did the parchment. I don't like using parchment for tres leche, but I've had it happen where I turn it and then it plops, but some of it sticks to the,
No,
because when it's in a baking pan and you're not unmolding it, you can just use a spatula
to scoop it up. Totally. And then we'll peel off the parchment from the bottom of the cake. Then we're going to use a rubber spatula or an offset spatula to spread the meringue evenly over the top and sides. And you say you like us to work with like thick layers of meringue to avoid kind of lifting the crumbs off the cake. Should I picture almost like a crumb coat of meringue and then more? Tell me what you mean.
No, so this meringue is very thick. And it's so tacky, it's almost chewy, so it sticks to the crumb. And so what I like to do is pretty much dump most of it on top of the cake and just guide it towards
the edges.
Towards the edges and then around the sides. Where like if I did a little bit and I try to crumb coat it, it's
not going to work. That's really smart.
And the cake is so soft and moist. You don't want to put a lot of force into spreading the meringue.
Yeah. And you say be creative with the pattern and the design of the meringue frosting. You like to go sort of a circular motion to create kind of a spiral pattern.
I have a turntable at home, and you can use a Lazy Susan. We put the cake in the middle, and you place the offset in the center, and then you turn it to create that spiral. You just go like out towards the edges.
So the spiral is sort of on the top, and then you can also do it on the sides by holding the small offset on the side and twisting.
Yeah, I have like my little signature swirl on my
the bakery I used to work at, that was their signature, to do the swirls on the top and the swirls on the sides. I forgot about that. I love that. And then you say we can sprinkle some cinnamon on top.
Yes, that's what I like to use.
Yeah, I like that too. And also
some
visually.
people do sprinkles.
Yeah,
or
but the cinnamon is so
for me. Yeah,
perfect.
for me it needs to be cinnamon.
And then we slice and serve cold. And you say the meringue lasts for days, so it's good to make ahead. Would you serve it right away, or would you refrigerate it with the meringue before serving?
No, for me, the important step is letting it soak overnight.
Yeah.
When you put the meringue, you can serve it
You can serve it right away.
Yeah. There's no need for it to rest at that point.
So if we're not unmolding our cake and we're in this big sheet pan, although we could put the meringue on it, we can also use what you call your fluffy coconut cloud whip. You say it's a little too loose, this whip, to go on a cake that you've unmolded. So it's best if it's going to stay in the pan, correct?
Yeah, for me, the fluffy coconut, it's a different tres leche experience. And it lightens it and it makes it taste more Caribbean because it's very coconutty. But it does deflate quickly. So this is something that I want to do immediately, and if I'm serving it at home.
Yes.
Even if I'm taking this tres leche to a potluck or
You're
something.
going to do the meringue.
I'm doing the meringue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the meringue holds for a few days.
I get it. I get it. We'll place our stand mixer bowl or a large bowl if we're using a hand mixer in our freezer for about 20 minutes. Then we'll combine heavy cream and salt in the chilled bowl, and we're using our handheld mixer, the stand mixer. We'll whisk on medium-low speed until it holds soft peaks, 5 to 8 minutes. And then we're going to add cream of coconut. Is that like Coco Lopez?
Coco Lopez.
Yeah, love. Slowly add cream of coconut, which is sweetened coconut, and we'll beat until the whip holds medium peaks. So the peak should hold tip when the beater is lifted for 2 to 4 minutes. Is it the kind of thing that because it's eventually going to be pretty loose or is loose anyway, you can't even get past medium peaks? Like if you kept going, it's
pretty much, because Coco Lopez is a little bit on the watery side, so that's one of the reasons, but it's one of my favorite ingredients.
Oh my gosh, me too. It's like I use it in like coconut macaroons, like rather than sweetened condensed milk.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this whip goes a little against whipped cream rules. I think it's so light and coconutty, and you can't really get that flavor from coconut extract.
And there's a lot of coconut, obviously, in your version of tres leche. Is that traditional, would you say?
It's not.
Yeah,
no.
I love it.
For me, it's a little lighter. And the thing with coconut milk is it hardens in the fridge. So it gives the tres leche a more custardy texture.
Yum. Yum, yum, yum. We beat for about 2 to 4 minutes until we get those medium peaks, and then we spread over the cake, and we'll eat immediately and serve. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Mia, and I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Thank you, Jessie.
That's it for today's show. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and tell your pals about us. You can find today's recipe at cherrybomb.substack.com. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!